All right, today I'm going to spend most of the class talking about your first assignment for the class. There's a couple things I want to share with you, and I'll be doing screen share and go over all of that good stuff. For today, I asked you to participate in a discussion on the discussion board, and the reason for doing that is to try and promote and prompt your thinking on a topic for your major research paper. We're not going to be really starting on that for a couple of weeks, but the first project that you're doing for the class is a biography. And your biography, hopefully, will be related to whatever your major research project is. I was talking with a student in the previous class, after class, and she was a little confused about that, and I want to make sure that it's clear. What she asked is, how are they related? And a very valid, honest question. For example, one of the topics that she is interested in is standardized testing. A lot of ways, a lot of directions that you could go in doing research on that topic. One thing you might want to look at would be the MCAS in Massachusetts. If you grew up in Massachusetts, you know how horrible that whole experience is. What is the intention of standardized testing? Hopefully the intention is that everybody who graduates has a similar educational experience, that people in less wealthy towns are still getting the same quality education as somebody living in an expensive town, where their taxes might be higher, they may pay their teachers more. That's one argument about standardized testing, but there are many arguments against standardized testing. And if you talk to a teacher, especially somebody who teaches in the grades where standardized testing is instituted once a year, I think it's once a year, then you will learn just how horrible the whole practice is. There's a lot of controversy on that. That's interesting for a research project because you can find the different points of view. But let's back it up. I'm asking you to put a face on this topic. Anybody know who you might use for a face, a biography, for a topic like standardized testing? So let us begin. And this is something that all of you may be struggling with. It depends on your topic. It really does. But here's something that you don't hear often in a college writing class. Let's go to Wikipedia. And why is Wikipedia useful? Because Wikipedia often includes a biography or more in terms of their articles. Wikipedia articles are usually organized in such a way that they answer the 5 W's for the question. So I'm going to put in standardized tests. Okay. There are a couple different things that pop up. Here's an interesting one. In Canada, apparently, it's popular. But I'm just going to go to this one. And I don't know, I haven't done this before, so I don't know what's going to happen, what results we are going to have. In my 12 o'clock class, we did a different topic. And I could also ask you all, if anybody wanted to broach their topic, and we could take a look. But this one's just fresh on my mind. And I'm also a little bit curious because I had an idea of a person in mind, and I'm just wondering if this article might include the same thing. Wikipedia articles often start with some sort of a definition, an explanation, your basic encyclopedic entry to begin. They want to make sure that everybody who reads and I say they very loosely, who reads an entry understands the topic that they're looking at. So here we see there are a few different options. High stake tests, that's something that a lot of people talk about because, for example, in China, there is a single day that all young people of a certain age take a test that determines whether or not and where they go to college. It is definitely high stakes. I know students, I've had students who are from China who currently live in China, and they do talk about this. So very high stakes testing. But there's a couple definitions here. And you know that if you put your cursor over it, it's going to pop up something. So a high stake test is a test with important consequences for the test taker. Passing has important benefits such as a high school diploma, a scholarship, or a license to practice a profession. Failing has important disadvantages. So that's, just a way to confirm that we all know what we're talking about. Multiple choice tests, just identifying different types of tests. There's also other terms that aren't defined here. But again, I'm just looking at this because I want to see if I can find a notable person. Over here, it's really handy. They have a nice little outline sort of format. They do talk about China, and if I click on that, I'm going to be taken to a page. I'll just do that for a moment. The earliest evidence of standardized testing was in China during the Han Dynasty, where the imperial examinations covered the 6 arts, which included music, archery, horsemanship, arithmetic, writing, and knowledge of the rituals and ceremonies of both public and private parts. What I want to know is when was that? So if I wanted to follow up, I could click on that and it takes me to something else. Oh, look at this. It dates back to the 1500s. Very interesting. Interesting stuff. So again, if you were interested in this as a topic, you might want to go further with that. I'm just scanning through this. I haven't seen this before, and I'm only going through this process because you too may find yourself in a similar situation. They have different examples of standardized testing. Musicians, I know a lot of musicians, and one standardized test is that they often have an audition, and usually an audition, musicians are given the same piece of music and they go before a panel. A lot of times it's a blind audition where the adjudicators do not see whoever it is that's playing, so they can't identify the person in terms of sex or nationality or anything like that. I've even heard of situations where the musician, if they walk onto a stage, that there is a carpet so that the adjudicators can't tell if the person is wearing high heels or not. I know this because I know a musician who had an audition in Colorado, and when she came back from it, she talked about that. Okay, so it talks about China, talks about the UK. We're probably interested in the United States. Again, I'm just looking through this trying to find a name. So here we have, I think, the first name that popped up. Everett Franklin Lindquist was a professor of education at the University of Iowa College, best known as the creator of the ACT and other standardized testing. So it might be interesting to go further and look at him. The entire entry isn't about the United States system of standardized testing, but that probably is what we want to focus on if we're doing this kind of research. So it is a very lengthy entry, they talk about the GRE, the Graduate Record Exam, which is another standardized testing for people who want to enter grad school. They talk about the SATs, something you're probably very familiar with. Talk about different formats, standardized grading and non-standardized. And it still isn't really bringing me to the person that I first came up with in my own little head. And that's okay. I don't see a lot of names. I am familiar with the Torrance test of creative thinking, so that might be in her book. Now You See It, and here's a person that might be interesting: Kathy Davidson, pretty recent, outspoken person. So Wikipedia isn't the end of your research. You could probably do something similar with a Google search and also find good information. But one of the things, go up here. And I just wanted to put this in the IQ test. So this is a different kind of standardized testing, but it might be interesting to find out more about that and maybe put a face on it that way. This is the guy that I thought of, Alfred Binet, the developer of the Stanford-Binet test. So somebody like that, he's an older gentleman. He died in 1911. In terms of background for the whole concept of standardized testing, you could argue that he would be a useful person. So that's the beginning of today's class, just giving you an idea of how you can take a topic and how you can put a face on the topic, and maybe something like Wikipedia could be a useful resource for that. Google could also be. You might already know who you want to use. If you were interested in, like, the presidential campaign of 2020, you might want to use President Biden as your biography. That'd be great. Tons of information on him. You might want to pick somebody lesser known, because I think that's also interesting to learn more about a topic. Finding somebody who would be directly related to your topic, but challenge yourself to learn more about that person. So any questions so far? All right. So for Friday, I do want you to try to narrow your topic, your ideas. So for today, for the discussion board, I asked you to post 4 ideas. And for Friday, I want you to choose one, because we have to pick a topic in order to put a face on the topic. I suppose you could do it the other way around if you're really interested in, and this happened last semester where several students had seen a documentary about Ted Bundy. So they all did, 3 of them did their biographies on Bundy. So sometimes you go at it the other way around. You have an interesting person in mind, and then you try to broaden the topic so that you can do your research project on something related to that particular person. Tom Brady, maybe you want to use him. And then you would back up, and your research project might be about some aspect of football. Maybe it's about fitness training. Maybe it's about steroids, whether or not they're being used, the debate about that, the controversy. He would still be a good face for any of those topics. Super Bowl, maybe you are interested in the Super Bowl as a topic, controversies, anything like that. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. So the next thing I want to show you is, where do you find good information on a topic? A biography. So I'm going to go here. I know I had it open. All right. You probably had a little bit of an introduction to the UMass Library online resources in your Writing 1 class. I think in my class we touched on it a little bit, but in this class we're going to spend a lot more time on it. So this is when I went to uml.edu and I put in the search library and it opened this up, but this isn't where we really want to be. We want to be on the dedicated library page, which is really kind of separate from the entire web. I'm not sure how. It looks like it's the same, but it's not. It used to be. Anyway, so if you do uml.edu/library/ you will get to the dedicated page. If you find your sources through the UML library database, a lot of your work is going to be done because the databases will have citation tools, and you do have to keep track of your sources, so that can be very useful. If you're using another university's library system, all of the libraries have their own dedicated website. Okay, so from here, I'm going to pick databases because I don't want to put, like if I was to do Benet, and just put that into the search term, it's going to bring me a ton of unuseful information. And you're going to get very distracted, and it's going to be, you know, like going into that void that is the internet. Sorry. So click on databases, and then click on B, and then click on biography in context. All right. So Alfred Benet is who I want to look up. So I'm in biography and context. And when you put in a name, it pops up different options. Sometimes it's, you know, normally we would put in the last name first and then first name. Sometimes there's more than one. Sometimes you need the middle initial in order to distinguish an actor from a scientist. So I'm just going to click on this. We get a little picture of him, and that's cool, but that's not where I want it to be. Okay, that's better. So this gives us a little bit of a background. It's not enough, but it's an overview, and that's a good place to start. And then once I click here, it opens up the entire article, and this is through the Encyclopedia of World Biography online. Things that I want you to take note of. There are many things. One of them is the word count. So this particular entry is 432 words. That's pretty good. Content level 4, and the date of publication is 1998. Well, we know that he died in 1911. So the fact that this was last updated in 1998 is probably okay. Other people, even if they are dead, if they died more recently or it was under controversial reasons, like people are still talking about Elvis Presley, who died in 1977, or Michael Jackson, because they're still researching, they're still uncovering new information. So it might be important to take note of the date of publication. Okay, so this goes on, talks a little bit about who he is, and then there's further readings. This isn't a whole lot of information. And one of the things that I'll be asking you to do for this topic is an annotated bibliography. And I'll spend most of Friday's class going over exactly how to do that and what my expectations and requirements are for you. But one of the things you need to do is a summary. So you need to find good articles. And right here, I see there are 7 biographies on Benet. And here you will see them all, just the headers, the listing. None of them are all that long, except this last one, which is in the Encyclopedia of Education, because he was an educator and because he worked in that field. It makes sense that that would be the longest entry because it probably has references to things like his intelligence quotient test. So I would say, stay away from something that says brief biography, but what is the usefulness of a brief biography? It will give you some basic information. One of the things that I'm requiring you to do for this project is to talk about the person's past, present, and future. And for this, I'm going to go back, stop sharing just for a second. You need to provide a solid paragraph, can be more than one paragraph, about the person's past. Where are they from? 2 things that are essential to earn full credit. You need to tell me when they were born. Specifically, you need to find a date of their birth. Everybody has been born, so you should be able to find that. It is possible that the person was born in a time period when records weren't kept very accurately, or it could be that they were born in a situation where their birth records were destroyed. There are some notable people that, the entry might say something like the birth records at the town hall in, I'm just going to pick Quincy, Massachusetts, were destroyed by a fire in the early 1900s. Therefore, we do not know the exact date of birth for John Smith, but we know that it was either, let's say 1892 or 1893. Okay, so the notable person would want to include that in their response. I'm getting ahead of myself just a little bit because what you're doing is you're finding this information and then you're going to pretend that you are that person and write a letter to you. So John Smith might say, I don't know exactly what year I was born, but most people you will find a specific date of birth. It will include the month, it will include the day, it will include the year. Sometimes it even includes the hour. It depends. Okay. I'm looking for a date. The other essential part is a place. So again, depending on who it is, it might just say born in Austria, but more than likely it would include a city. So make sure that you are as specific as you can be. And if you can't find that specific information, then the notable person needs to provide some sort of an explanation as to why. I think William Shakespeare is one of those people. I think we know what city he was born in, but I think there's also debate about it. Okay, so that is the person's past. Not only when and where they were born, but what their early life was like. And a lot of times a good biography will give you some of that information. Where were they educated? Did they go to graduate from high school, college? Did they go to grad school? What was their early work experience like? If it's somebody who's in the arts, maybe they didn't go to college. Maybe they started a practice, painting on sidewalks. Tracy Chapman was a subway musician that's how she got her early experience. Maybe she's going to talk about that. So have them, go pretty extensively about their early life. What was their family like? If they mention things like nationality, what country they were born, what that was like. The next part is current, so present. What are they doing today? Here is where creativity will come into play. It is possible that you're writing about somebody who is long dead. So how are you going to talk about the present? Well, one thing you can do is to date the letter at some point in the past. Then the person can talk about what they're doing right now. For example, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb after I've heard 10,000 different attempts. And then a moment of inspiration, he put two things that he knew worked together and immediately solved the problem. You might have him talking about different experiences with different practices, different attempts, different inventions. Maybe he's going to talk about his frustration. Maybe you want to date the letter the day before he figured it out. Because the next thing you also have to talk about is the future. And again, if you're writing about Joe Biden, he's made it very clear what he has intended for the future of the United States. And so if you date it today, you can very accurately have him talking about his future goals and plans. Most people, you will probably date your letter at some point in the past so that you can find out what has happened and then have your letter talk about the future. Does that make sense? Anybody confused by that? All right, I'm asking you to be accurate. I'm asking you to do research in order to find the answer, but I'm also asking you to be a little bit creative, because creativity is where you're going to take this kind of information and then pretend that you are that person and write about their future goals and plans. All right. So I do have many examples that I have posted on Blackboard, but before we get there, I just wanted to go back and show you just like somebody else, Eminem. Okay. So biography and context has a lot of people, a lot of information, probably much more on Eminem than on Alfred Binet. And I'm just scanning through it. We have the essentials. We have when he was born specifically. Doesn't say where, but I know that the biographies will include this. So down here, it lists 7 biographies. It also lists 7 audio recordings. So what do we get if we do this? I think most of these are probably interviews, which would be very helpful in terms of trying to replicate how he talks. So you might want to listen to those. But I'm going to click on the biography. And again, take note of when it was updated most recently. And both of these, I think it's interesting, were updated just last year. And I don't remember if something happened last year that would prompt the databases to add content about Eminem, but more than likely something did happen. So if you were interested in this, you might want to read the article. Also notice the length of the articles. This one's 3,000 words. That's a lot. That's like over 10 pages of content. This one too. Also take note of the source. Contemporary musicians would definitely have a lot of useful information if you're interested in this, in Eminem as a musician. And like, why wouldn't you? But then there are other people who tend to cross over in terms of where they belong. I'm thinking of somebody like maybe Brad Pitt. You know, he's a famous actor, but he's also an activist. There are many actors that are like that I don't know if it's because they have free time or just because they're popular faces and different charities have contacted them to be spokespeople. So contemporary musicians, if we click on this, right here, it says exactly where he was born. It will talk about his early life, which is important because you're going to be writing about the person's past. And here, it does reference the early 2020s, releasing his 9th album. And so that's probably why this was updated. If you were to choose Eminem and have him talking about his future, you might want to date your letter before, I think it mentioned somewhere it was January of 2020 that something happened. It might be at the end. So you might want to date your letter in like December of 2019, where, yeah, right here, it is released an album in January. So if you have him talking about his upcoming release, then, you know, dating the letter in December of 2019, you could write it with that being a future goal and future plans. Early life, early influences, some of his struggles, experience, all of it is here. I'm not saying this is the best biography, but it certainly gives you a good overview of this individual. Newsmakers has another article. It will have a slightly different point of view. Very often they use the same basic information, but they have an agenda. And so this database is newsmakers. So that's, you know, anybody who's popular and in the news. Others. This one, very, very brief. Probably not a good resource for this particular project. But in terms of affirming things like this said he was born in Kansas City. I think the other one had something a little bit more specific, but really just an overview. I am asking you to do an annotation of 6 sources. So right here on Gale, we have 7 sources that are all biographies, but that one that's so short, probably not useful. And is it important to do an annotation of things that are so redundant? It might be better to do something, I don't know, like go to YouTube and I want to do an interview Eminem. You know, to have somebody who interviewed him to hear what he had to say on a topic. This one was just, again, a lot going on in December of 2020, I guess because of that album release. You might want to find an older interview. You might want to find something from early on in his career. So not everybody is going to be available for this kind of content, but the intention is you can do an annotation from a YouTube. On Friday, I'm going to talk much more extensively about what goes into an annotation. But basically, let me stop sharing. Basically, an annotation has 3 important parts. It is a summary of the source, and the summary is usually about 75 words. That one short entry was it said 50 words. So how can you write a summary that's 75 words? So that's why it's important to find good sources. You can summarize the interview. You can summarize a news article about the person, biographies certainly. So that's one part. The second part is an analysis or an assessment of the source. Academic sources like you would find through biography and context, you could give it high marks for it probably has an author or it is at least available through a reputable source, like Gale biography and context. Recency, that's another criteria. On Friday, I'm going to show you a couple short videos that go over how to do an annotation, but I just want to briefly touch on that. The third aspect is a reflection. And the reflection is basically, will you use this resource or not? So really just write a sentence where you will include that. I have posted several examples of other students who have done annotations. I am asking you to color code your annotation. And the purpose is it will affirm for you that you have done the things that you have asked that I do. And it also helps me when I'm reviewing them. If you identified this as summary and I read it and I say, that's not a summary, then, we can have that discussion. Okay. What time is it? Pretty good. So we talked about putting a face on your topic. We talked about how to find a face related to your topic. You might want to go to Wikipedia, but don't use Wikipedia as your source. Just use it as a way to sort of narrow down and introduce yourself. Like I mentioned, that student who was interested in standardized testing, maybe Wikipedia gave us some ideas. Google can do that too. You might want to put in the topic in Google and depending on what it is, use quotation marks so that it's looking at it as a phrase. For example, concussions in youth sport, something like that. If you use quotation marks, it's going to be looking for all of those together as opposed to just looking at the word concussion, youth, and sport, which is a huge amount of resources. But if you put them all together, it's only going to find things that have all three of those aspects. So Google can be a good place to begin too. For Friday, I'm going to ask you to decide who will be your notable person for this project. On Friday, I'll share more about how to do the annotated bibliography. And then over the weekend, I want you to write your letter to this notable person. You do not have to do research on the person to write your letter to them. You do have to think about, what do you want to know? I have found when students skip this part, that the letters back from the notable person to you are less good than when students take the time to write that really detailed letter to a notable person. Dear Benjamin Franklin, I am a student at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell, Massachusetts. You probably haven't heard of Lowell, but let me just explain. I'm doing a project for an English class. So that's the kind of thing that you would want to put in your letter to the notable person. You will want to ask them, dear Mr. Franklin, where were you born? When were you born? What was it like when you were growing up? That'd be really interesting to know, actually. Is there any projects that you're currently working on? And what do you see as a future of the United States of America, which you saw come into being? I didn't do any research to do that. You shouldn't have to. Your letter to the notable person will probably be about, I would say, 100 words or so. And I will have an assignment for you to upload that probably for Sunday night, so that on Monday we can dive more into expanding on your annotated bibliographies. All right. Any questions? Everybody pretty clear? Okay, so deciding on one topic, trying to find a face to put on that topic. Just really be thinking about it. I know we did a free write on Wednesday. I think we did. And we'll probably do another one on Monday. Fridays, I usually try to devote most of the day to sort of do an in-class workshop. You know, I'll probably speak very briefly at the beginning of class and then let you go free and see if you can rope in some of those resources. One thing I wanted to share that I forgot to. So when you find a source on biography and context, and I'm going to say, pick this one. One of the beautiful things about it is it has a citation tool. So all you have to do is click on that little quotation mark and it will generate the citation for you. I accept both MLA and APA. They're very similar, but they're also different. If you are in a major that uses one of the other citation tools or formats, you can use those, but just let me know so that I'll be aware that they may look different. You can copy and paste this. I usually, when I'm doing research, I will create a file that I have designated just for my sources. You need to provide the MLA or APA citation, complete citation with each one of your annotations. So make sure that you do that. If you use like Google and you, or for example, YouTube, and you wanted to cite that, then you'll have to check how to do it in the writer's reference, that handy dandy handbook that will step you through all of that. But you do need to provide a citation for each one of your resources. So the citation tool through biography and context, or any of the sources that you find through the library, they do make mistakes every now and then. And it's important for you to put your eyes on the actual biography. I'm sure I can't find one to show you immediately. But one of the mistakes that they often do, because this is just like a text generator, if you ever see a name that's in all caps, that isn't correct. So you would just have to rewrite it. And another thing, when you do the citations, make sure you pay attention to the italicization. There are parts of it that will be, depending on the format, in italics. And if you just do something like copy and paste, sometimes it will take away the italicization. So make sure that you pay attention to that. Another important thing, you notice that the second line is indented, which is correct. Something I'll go over in much more detail in the future. But a reference page, the second line is always indented half an inch. It's just the opposite of your typical paragraph. And I'll tell you a handy dandy little trick on how to do that. All right. I talked for a long time. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so the citing sources, that site that you're using, is that the only one that is allowed, or EasyBib too? Is that fine? I didn't know what you said, sorry.
You can use EasyBib, you can use NightSite. I'm just sharing that if you use one of the library databases, it does it immediately. If you use like EasyBib, sometimes you have to manually enter things into it. Yeah. So it's quicker if the source is available, but it's not always available. So like if I was doing a YouTube, I might use Night Sight. That's the one I like best. Easy Bib works.
All right, thank you very much.
Or you can think and just follow how it says to do it in the writer's reference.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I have a question for you after class too, just briefly. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Really good question. Okay, so what do you have to do for Friday?
Select a topic and a person for that topic.
Yeah. And if you can't find a person, I'll help you on Friday, but narrow it down to just one topic. And sometimes you don't know exactly what that topic is. I was the student who was talking about standardized testing. I don't know if she knows what direction she's going to go. She also had several other topics, but we just ended up talking about that. And I said to her, it's like I've sent you to the grocery store to buy a week's worth of groceries. Okay, so you walk through the store and you gather all the things that you find interesting. You're interested in the topic of maybe police brutality. All right. So you find anything that's remotely related to it. There's so many different angles that you could go with that. You come home from the grocery store and you've got all these different items and you've got them all laid out. And then once you have exposed yourself to all these different ideas, then you might pull out and figure out what are you going to make for dinner tonight. So you've got 50 items, but for our meal, we're using 5 or 6. And that's the important distinction between doing research where you have a thesis statement and you only find answers for that thesis statement, as opposed to where we are now in the process where we don't know what we're going to focus on. Maybe you do know, but I suggest you keep an open mind and see what your research presents to you. When I go grocery shopping, I never just go and pick out what I'm going to make for dinner tonight. Why? Because I'll have to go back tomorrow and the day after and the day after. There are some cultures that maybe don't have refrigeration, and that's part of their daily life. They go to the market every single day. There are some restaurants that are very popular that do something similar. They see what the market has, they come back, they make the menu, then that's what they serve. But I'm trying to save you that. So I'm just suggesting, think about shopping for the week, and then we'll figure out what's going to pair with what. And one thing, I make a lot of cooking analogies, You don't want to serve a dinner that's mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, and rice. There's no protein. There's no green vegetables. So when we talk about how you're going to balance the rest of your paper. But the biography is one part. The biography is going to be common for all of you. You will have a face associated with your topic. All right. I think that's it, unless anyone has a question. I'll see you Friday.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. Do we have to post our topic in person anywhere, or do we just have to know what it is?
Just know it.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. No problem. All
All right.
right.
So, did you dismiss the class? I think you did, right?
You are dismissed.
Okay, cool. So I had sent you an email Monday following up with the in-class journal. I had missed that class prior to knowing the information. I ended up watching the Zoom call, and now that I know, now there's in-person journals and all that. I was just unaware that there was one for that class. Is there any way that I can make that up, or?
So the free write?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it. You'll catch it up.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Did I not reply to your email?
I don't think you did because I did try to uh check my email. I don't think I got one, but it's okay.
Yes. No, it's not okay because I always reply to emails.
Oh,
Even if I don't know,
no, it's all right. I mean, yeah, you might have forgot or something.
I did not get an email from you.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, was it sent as a draft then? That's weird.
It says you joined the call on Monday at 2:05.
Yeah. So after class, I ended up watching your Zoom call.
So does it show you that? I didn't even know that.
Um, no, it doesn't. No, I ended up just like reviewing it because I knew I missed some important information. My car broke down, so I was with my mechanic trying to figure it out.
Oh.
Missing it, but yeah, no, you should have. I think you should have got the email. No, it should went. It should went through. That's weird.
No, you know what? Did you by any chance send it to a student account?
Um,
That's what you did.
maybe. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, once you mentioned that your car breaking down, it went to my student email account,
Oh,
which I don't check because,
yeah. That's my fault then, for sure. I'll make sure to put what is it at uml.edu? That's all it is, right?
yeah, you don't put student.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine. It's fine. A lot of students make that mistake because you're so used to putting in at
Yeah,
student.
exactly.
Yeah.
So do you want me to do that journal for you? You just kind of forget about it, almost
You
like.
don't have to. The way the free writes work when we do them in class, as long as you're present for most of, you will probably be doing 20, 22. As long as you do like 15 or more, you'll
Right.
get full credit.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The reflective journals are something you do on your own.
Yep.
So those you need 20 and you earn 5 points for each one.
Okay, those aren't timelined, right? Those are just at the end of the semester. You'll.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say don't leave it to the end of the semester. Try and
No.
do 2 a week.
Okay, and just one more question following that. How many sentences do you require for those? Is there like a limit?
3 to 5 sentences.
Okay, I think you mentioned that first. I was just making sure.
Yeah, for the reflection.
All right.
Free writes that we do in class are timed, and I usually give you 10 minutes.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, Professor.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Hi, so I just wanted to get
How are
on
you?
face to face and just say like, hi, my name is Marissa.
Hi, Marissa.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. You look like you're in Wanna Lancet Hall.
What? What's that?
That's one of the buildings on UML. It has brick walls, it has high arched ceilings, and it has, yeah, that's really cool.
This is Riverhawk Village.
Really?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I like it a lot. It's different from where I'm from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say like hi and like I'm on the soccer team too, so I'm gonna have to email you my schedule fairly soon when it actually gets published.
All right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I just wanted the face to face.
Yeah. Where are you from?
California.
What part?
Southern. Do you know where Ventura?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm from Ventura.
Wow. Wow. And what do you think of the snow?
It's cool, but you get numb very fast.
Yeah.
And it's different, but it's fun. I keep like jumping into like big piles and everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I'm like, I've never seen it before like this. So it's
That's
fun.
very cool. My daughter lived in San Francisco for 7 years.
Wow.
And she still works in San Francisco, although right now she's working remotely, so she's here. Yeah.
San Francisco's beautiful.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. All right. Nice to meet you, Marissa.
Thank you. You too. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Bye.